Welcome to the week in Troof number 7, A Tale of Two Vernons. This ugly slab of gammon you see before you is Carl Vernon, erstwhile author of self-help books like You Care Too Much, which is shown on the shelf behind him. But apparently he only cares really about people that agree with him. And his agenda within COVID is the anti-mask wearing, anti-COVID restrictions kind of thing, because he's terribly concerned for our mental health and well-being, because apparently we are going to all be horribly psychologically damaged by quarantine and mask wearing and all these kind of things. Well, speak for yourself, Carl Vernon, because, I'm not a well person. Seems like, you think everybody is young and healthy and all the rest of it, like yourself. So, you're not worried about catching coronavirus because you're okay, Jack. Very typical kind of British selfish attitude, which has become all too common in this country, unfortunately. Now, what business it is of his to care so much about masks, I really don't know. But apparently he's going to make sure we all know about it, because it seems like every video that he does is actually on this topic and nothing else. Doesn't seem really to have much else to say at all. But basically, he goes over all of the typical tropes about masks, like if you wear a mask, you're going to deprive your brain of oxygen, and you're going to cause yourself terrible physical harm. Well, I mean, it doesn't really take much work to unpick that type of argument, and doubtless you will have seen these memes that are going about where there's a nurse and she puts various different types of face coverings on and then measures her blood oxygen levels with a pulse oximeter. And of course, there's no difference whatsoever in her blood oxygen levels while she's wearing any of 4 different types of masks that she's got. And, if a mask like that, including surgical masks, really did affect your blood oxygen level, then surgeons wouldn't be able to wear them, would they, Carl? Because it would be dangerous for them to conduct any surgeries. So it's really a very fatuous argument. He's also said that, masks are the government exerting control over us. Well, actually, the government wasn't interested, in this country at least, in masks for a good long number of weeks, months, whatever. They just weren't interested in it. And for any conspiracy heads out there who are constantly saying, oh, you mustn't trust the World Health Organization. And I agree with that. I think they're like a really bogus organization. But they also did not recommend masks for a long, long, long time. But all of a sudden, all the truth community has entirely forgotten about this. And now they're saying, oh, but the WHO are recommending masks. So, obviously that's the reason why we shouldn't wear them if they're recommended by the WHO. Okay, you just conveniently forgot that for months and months and months they didn't recommend them at all. The other thing that truthers are conveniently forgetting is that this is a good way to avoid catching the virus, and it's a good way to avoid having to use vaccines. If we can stamp out the virus by wearing masks, then we can avoid vaccines altogether, can't we? Although, of course, we come up against the inevitable argument that this is a hoax, that the entire COVID thing is a hoax. I'm going to have to do some sort of video on the whole idea of things being a hoax. Seemed to start maybe around 2013, 14, the whole sort of, school shootings are hoaxes, everything's a hoax. It's all these actors and stuff doing these things that are being paid by the state. You can't pay enough people to make this a hoax. It's an international thing. A hoax on an international level with so many people involved could never work. It's an absolutely ridiculous premise. And even people that at the start were not interested in this idea, like David Icke, have now converted because they've seen that it's a popular idea and they've changed their story. Initially, he wasn't interested in the idea of it being a hoax, but now he is. So Carl Vernon is also going on that wearing masks is psychologically damaging to kids, even though children under a certain age in this country are exempt from wearing masks anyway. They don't have to. And if a child is happy to wear a mask, then why shouldn't they? I mean, I've been wearing a mask from quite early in this pandemic because I made them. My needlework skills are good enough that I can. And my children are also happy to wear them. The eldest one's actually a bit nervous about the whole thing, and she feels a lot safer wearing a mask. So it's psychologically damaging to kids, Carl, to make them go out without a mask if indeed they feel safer wearing one. And also this, I've heard this kind of trope going round as well, that slaves were made to wear masks. I've never seen any evidence of that, apart from a few photos that have been dug up which show slaves wearing kind of gag type things, but which are not a health related mask at all. The worst thing about this really is that these people are so obsessed with the idea of talking about how awful masks are that they're actually ignoring all the things that are really important about the pandemic rules that have been brought in. Before I forget, it occurred to me when looking at this ugly slab of gammon, as I call him, that actually looks like the Moog, Will-O-the-Wisp. So that's what I'm going to call him from now on. Although really, I try not to watch his videos because all they do is make my blood pressure bad, as he makes me so mad. By all accounts, his books are very average, and they consist of the sort of advice your mum might give you, like how to free yourself from social anxiety. Well, stop caring what people think about you. Okay, mum, cheers. That solves it all. The other bloke that keeps going on about this is this cosy old blokey Vernon Coleman. Looking into his background, he seems to me to be slightly less of a useful idiot than the other bloke. And he talks about things like Agenda 21 and stuff like that. And it apparently is a doctor, but he's been more of a sort of alternative style doctor for many, many, many years now. So it's not such a surprise for him to be saying these kind of things. But, he's a cosy old gentleman in the leather chair. And he's also been going on about masks. And he says some things in this particular video that I was watching that are completely unsubstantiated. Like, the more you wash a mask, the less effective it becomes. But he offers absolutely no evidence, proof, medical papers, anything to do with this. It's just, it appears to be something he's just made up. Cloth masks allow particles through. And the size of virus particles was like a mouse going through marble arch or something like that, he said. So basically, this is the argument that virus particles are very, very small, so they can get easily through a cloth mask. But the thing everyone seems to be neglecting is that virus particles don't kind of hang around on street corners waiting to mug you or floating around in the air. They travel in droplets. They travel in snot and they travel in spit. So wearing a face mask is actually more effective than you might think at preventing the transmission of diseases. And, he's saying there's no evidence that mask wearing is effective. Well, yeah, there is. Go and look at Dr. John Campbell's YouTube site, because he has a lot of videos on this subject. what does he also say? Oh, he's resorting to, they could cause you dermatitis. Oh, it might make your face sore and itchy. Oh, how dreadful. Honestly, this pair of people, we're supposed to have this blitz spirit in this country, but apparently neither of these people think that we can cope psychologically with the idea of wearing masks for an hour while we do the shopping, or for a journey on the train or a bus or whatever it is. I accept that people wearing masks to drive around on their own in their car is indeed ridiculous. Nobody needs to do that. But, the idea that masks are some sort of enslavement of us is equally ridiculous. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny at all. In fact, most of these people are completely forgetting that the temporary COVID laws that we have in fact, yes, done really bad things to the people in this country, but they're ignoring it. I'll give you 2 examples. The change in the law for sectioning people under the Mental Health Act has in fact changed so that now you don't need 2 doctors to agree to section somebody, you only need 1. And of course, Mr. Vernon, you should realise that for the people that support the Troof movement are much more likely to be told that they're bonkers and to be carted off than almost everybody else in the country. So that's actually really important to them. So I haven't once heard anyone in the Troof movement talk about that change in the law. The other thing that's relevant, and of course, we never hear anything about disability in the Troof movement. It's a dirty word. It's like disabled truthers don't exist. They're not part of the movement. We're all supposed to be fit and healthy and young, and As the other thing that the laws have affected disabled people. In fact, for the duration of the pandemic, the laws have been changed so that councils are not obliged to provide social care to disabled people. But of course, we don't hear any truthers going on about that either. So actually, I know it hasn't been a very funny video, I'm afraid, but these people make me really, really angry. And as a disabled person, I don't feel particularly welcome in this movement. And as for Vernon Coleman, the other Vernon, he should know better, really.